Hey, welcome to Atlee Church. We're so glad that you decided to join us for today's service, no matter where you find yourself on your spiritual journey. Just to let you know a little bit about Atlee, Atlee is a safe place for those who've given up on church or never went. And our mission is simple: to reach seekers and equip believers to love God, love themselves, love others, and serve the world. Now, if you want more information about who we are as a church or ways for you to get connected, make sure to check out our website at atleechurch.org, or you can also visit us on social media or download our app. And we hope today that you find the service helpful and also encouraging no matter where you are in life right now. So let's get started with today's service.
Good morning and happy Memorial Day weekend. I am so glad to be here with you guys this morning. As Trey said earlier, I'm Bethany Mullins. I'm the student ministry director here, and it is an honor to be here. I tell you, when they hired me, I thought they were going to put me in a corner with the students, but they're like, no, you're singing, you're preaching, you're leading the devotionals, and I'm just so thankful that you all provide an opportunity for me to do that. So I just want to thank you. But does anybody in here love Memorial Day? I love Memorial Day. I love the day off. I love going to the pool. You know, I was always the first kid in the pool at the Memorial Day, and I was always the last kid in the pool before Labor Day. I love summer, right? I was so excited for this. Actually, tomorrow I'm so excited. We're doing a cookout, hash brown casserole. My mom has got it locked in gear. I am excited, right? So I love Memorial Day. I love decorations, the red, white, and blue, the whole thing. So when I knew that I was preaching this Sunday, I said, you know what? I want some fun facts that I could give them, right? Maybe I could throw it around just for fun. And so I Googled Memorial Day fun facts, and the first link was a Memorial Day fun facts quiz. So I clicked on it, and I didn't know any of the answers. And honestly, I didn't get past the first question, but I'll tell you why in a second. So the first question was, what is another name for Memorial Day? And I didn't know, but some of the answers were Cookout Day, or Start of Summer Day, or Decorations Day. And I immediately thought, that is terrible, because Memorial Day has so much more meaning, right? But then I realized, oh no, that's what I think of when I think of Memorial Day, right? I think of going to Dollar General and getting the red, white, and blue tablecloths for my friends to come over. Maybe you think of your family or a river day or a lake day. And for those of you watching at the river, I'm jealous. But I'm glad you're here this morning. But those are the things that we think of when we think of Memorial Day. Maybe we think of the food or the people, when in reality, Memorial Day has a deeper meaning. Memorial Day is a somber day. It's a day where soldiers sacrifice their lives for other people, right? And it's for those families that are mourning those soldiers. And it's for us as Americans and U.S. inhibitors to reflect on that, right? So Memorial Day has a much deeper meaning than the shallow first day of the pool, although I love it, right? It has a much deeper meaning. And so the reason I didn't get past that very first question is because I realized I saw a metaphor there, right? Just as we might have a shallower idea of what Memorial Day is, a lot of the times we as people or society or even us in this room have maybe a more shallow idea of what the church is, right? Or our relationship with God. So maybe when you think of the church, you think of holidays. Again, I love holidays. I got the decorations for all of them, right? Maybe you think of Christmas or Easter. Or maybe you think of, this is the 1 hour out of the week I can drop my kids off and just have a moment of peace, right? Or maybe you think of it as the day where I can put a face on and put on a nice outfit, or I can do my hair and I can just sit there and just relax. Or maybe you think of it as this is my fuel, my warm fuzzies. This is for me, my time, so then I can go out and have a good week. Or maybe you think of it, this is where I can go when I'm not busy, when I don't have a vacation or a lake house or a sports tournament to attend to. Or maybe simply you just think of your family. I was raised in church. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But maybe that's what you think of as a habit or a tradition. When in reality, right, the church and God have such a deeper meaning than that. There's so much more to faith and to church than that. So much more than Christmas and an hour with your kids being watched after. You know, it's more than childcare and it's more than those things. And so when I realized that, I was thinking about the phrase digging deeper. And so today we're going to talk about what that means, right? Why we should have that closer relationship rather than that shallow level. Sometimes it's easier to have God at arm's length because that vulnerability and that intimacy is difficult. And so today we're just going to approach that subject. So to start this morning, my main question for you guys is, what can I do to go deeper with God? Now, first of all, again, my name is Bethany Mullins. I just want to give you a little bit about myself. I am the student ministry director here, and I'm obsessed with my students. And a little bit about myself is that I am a pastor's kid. Raise your hand if you're a pastor's kid. My siblings are here. They understand the pain. Not only are we pastor's kids, but we are double pastor's kids. What does that mean? Both of our parents, mom and dad, ordained ministers. And they've been in the ministry since before they were my age. So we were raised in church culture. That's just kind of how we are, right? And me, as an extrovert, I loved this. I loved the way I was raised. I loved the culture. I loved that I was able to public speak. I loved that I was able to travel. I loved planning events, right? I make jokes. You know how NFL players are known to breed their children for the NFL? Well, I make jokes that our parents bred us to be able to do things like this, right? So Peyton Manning was teaching his son how to kick a field goal, but my family was taking me on international mission trip, public speaking, and I can decorate for a children's event, let me tell you. But that's just the way I was raised, right? And I love hosting and I love organizing. I'm a super leadership-oriented person, and so I love taking leadership. I love public speaking, and so a lot of the times I viewed church as a really awesome thing that I could do a lot of opportunities with, right? But with that, my perception of church a lot of the time, I thought of church as work. I thought of it as my parents' work. I thought of it as clocking in and out. You know, I thought of it as an opportunity for the resume. You know, a lot of time you see in those youth groups those kids that don't come around unless you need them to sign for your hours that you did volunteer work, you know what I mean? Sometimes I would see church that way. Or sometimes I would see church as just simply friendship. Sometimes I would lead a Bible study, not because I wanted to share the gospel, but because I was lonely and I needed community. Sometimes I would attend a small group, not necessarily because I wanted to hear anything new, but because I just wanted to meet new people. And sometimes you can even see church as a dating pool. And I know you're going to say that I'm wrong, but let me tell you that is so true. My parents met 20-some years ago as ministers, and I met my fiance, shout out to him, 5 years ago in a youth group, okay? So I know it's happening. I'm watching it with my own 2 eyes in my own student group, got to keep the 5 feet apart rule. But it happens, right? We see church as something different. And although some people looked at me and was like, she is so close to God. She knows God. She's been raised in church her whole life. She's been to dozens of churches from different states and even different countries. So she is so close to God, and she knows what she's talking about, right? She must have the best relationship with him. But because of my upbringing, a lot of the time, I had a shallow perspective of the church. I kind of saw it for what it gave me rather than what I could serve back or what I could get out of it on a deeper level. And that's the exact same as a shallow level of thinking of it as a place on a Sunday for Christmas or for Easter or something. And so often, when you're thinking about how you might need to dig deeper, just realize that I'm in the same boat, and this is for me just as much as it is for you guys. But my first question for you guys is why? Why do I need to dig deeper? Maybe you're comfortable with just coming to church on Christmas and Easter, or maybe you're comfortable just watching online and coming when you can, or maybe you're comfortable only praying to God when things get tough. Right? Because when you pray more often than that, when you pray on a daily basis, then it becomes a relationship. It's vulnerable and it's intimate. But if you can keep God at arm's distance, I can just contact him when I want to. Because when you have a relationship with God, you have to get real, right? And that can be difficult. I myself struggle with vulnerability. You can ask my family members. And that's something I'm working on. I always want to be perceived as a leader or strong. But in order to get close to God, sometimes you have to let those things go and be more vulnerable. Are any of you guys in this room married? Wow, I'm not, but I'm working on it. So I'm trying to learn more about marriage as we go along. And in a marriage, supposedly, this is essentially the most intimate relationship you can have with another human, right? So you should know that person fully and everything about them, and vice versa, you should know that they know you just as much. You guys should be each other's closest confidants and know everything about each other. And what I often like to tell my students is that God, the being that made the universe, that made the stars and the moon and the sun and the ocean, that made the fields, that made the sunsets that they love taking pictures of and posting on their Instagram, right? The God who made all those things, who made their family, who made the concepts of joy and kindness and gentleness and equality, the God who created beautiful things, intricately created you. He knit you together in your mother's womb, and he had a desire and a purpose for your life. And that being, that unfathomable being that we can never comprehend, he wants a relationship, an intentional and desired relationship with you. What's more better reason to get to know such a being when he knows you full well? So we're going to read a scripture to show how much God knows us. So let's go to Psalm 139. It will be on the screen, but I always tell my students, at the beginning of every time I start a lesson, I'm always like, you have to get your Bibles. I'm like, hey, what do you have to go do? And they're like, get my Bible. And then they shuffle and they get their Bible. So feel free to turn, but it'll be on the screen. Psalm 139, 1-4 says, you have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You are familiar with all of my ways. And before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely. He fully knows you. Those things that you came in with this morning, those struggles and those barriers that you've been carrying that you think nobody else knows about, God knows those things. He knows those full well. He designed those things in you, and those scenarios that you've been through, he knows about. He fully understands you. And thus, if you want to have that deeper, flourishing relationship, you should seek to understand and fully know God. And the closer you get with God, the deeper that relationship can get, and the deeper that peace can get. And so that is why I believe digging deeper is such an essential thing. Now, we're going to talk about how. Because if I told you, you got to get deeper with Jesus, you got to get deeper with God, you have to understand a deeper definition of the church, go on your way, you're not going to know what to do. I personally, every single day, don't know what to do. So I configured a couple steps that might help us out. But first, before I get into the steps, we're going to talk about Peter. Say, Peter. Oh, you're listening. I love it. All right, so Peter, he was one of the disciples. So Jesus, the Son of God that we talk about in church a lot, he had followers. And they were often called the disciples, the 12 disciples, and Peter was one of them. Peter was one of Jesus' closest friends. And we're going to start at the beginning of Peter's story here. So Matthew 4:18-20 says, as Jesus was walking beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon called Peter and his brother Andrew, and they were casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. Come, follow me, Jesus said, and I will send you out to fish for people. And at once they left their nets and they followed him. That is crazy. So they were fishermen. Is anybody fishing here? I have friends that fish. I don't understand it, but I know it's important, so I'm glad you do. But these men were fishermen, and that was their whole full-time job. That was their favorite thing to do. That's how they made their money. That's how they spent their time. And Jesus came up to them and was essentially like, I'm going to go around and spread good news. I'm going to spread joy, and I'm going to spread what I think is right. Do you want to follow me? Leave all that behind. And what did they do? They dropped their nets, and they followed him. So that leads me to my first point. Let go. And letting go is difficult, okay? But as I mentioned before, those barriers, right? Those things that you're carrying, those burdens, right? We can let those things go. So when I was thinking about digging deeper, I was thinking about a metaphor. And the metaphor I thought of was digging a well. Has anybody ever dug a well? I have not. I never will. Don't have the time for that. But anyway, a well. Let's pretend we're digging one right here, right? So in order to dig a well, you have to make sure that nothing on top of the land or below the land is interfering with building the well. Otherwise, you can't build it. You're not going to build a well in the middle of your house. And you're not going to build a well when there's a bunch of pipes underneath, because you won't be successful in that, right? It will not be a successful, deep, and flourishing well. It will not be helpful to you. And also, as I talked about marriage, just as we're building this well together, I'm so glad we're in this marriage metaphor together this morning. But just as in a marriage, you have to let go of things of the past. You have to let go of your singleness. You have to let go of the feelings that you had before, right? I've heard of people who get into marriages where they were used to their own schedule. They lived alone for a long time, and then they had to compromise, right? They had to move in with someone. There's a show actually called Married at First Sight, and a lot of the most difficult things for them is that they lived alone, and now they're married to a stranger, and they have to learn the new schedule. You can't take your schedule with you into your marriage. You can't take your feelings for others into your marriage, and you can't take the commitment to other people or your singleness into your marriage. And in the same way, in order to reach God, in order to get closer with God and dig deeper, you have got to let go. And I know that that's difficult and it's hard to think about, but those apprehensions, we all have doubts and fears, right? One of Atlee's biggest sayings is that it's for the church, for people who walked away from the church, gave up on church, or for those who are unchurched. And so if that rings true to you, I know you guys have apprehensions, fears, and doubts. I do too. And I'll talk about that a little bit later, but there are so many things about the church that can be scary, and so it's easy to keep it at arm's length. It's easy not to make it personal. It's easy to hold on to those fears and doubts and apprehensions, because if I let them go, I have to be vulnerable, and I have to trust, and I have to give God everything. And so sometimes it's hard to let go, but in order to get that peace, that understanding, and that love, we have to be willing to let things go. And this is not a one-time occurrence. Every day you're going to wake up and you're going to have to let things go, and we'll talk about that later. But that's my first point, let go. The second one in the story of Peter, who? Oh, you guys are great. So in the story of Peter, now Peter has known Jesus for a long time. And the disciples have been with Jesus for a long time, and they're all in a boat, and things are getting rocky. And they look out, and they see Jesus coming. And so we're going to talk about that. So turn to your Bibles or read the screen. Matthew 14, 25 through 29. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and they cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage. It is I, do not be afraid." "Lord, if it's you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," he said. Then Peter got out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. The trust that that man had in Jesus. I can say all day that I trust in Jesus, but if a man is standing out in a rocky ocean and tells me to walk on the water, there ain't no way that I'm doing that, right? So Peter had a lot of trust in Jesus, which brings us to the second point, which is trust. Trust is hard. I struggle with that myself every day, trusting people, trusting God, trusting scenarios. It is hard work, and it's a daily thing that we have to work on, almost like exercising ourselves to trust more every day. So back to our beautiful well. When you're building a well, it's not easy. It's not going to take one scoop. It's not going to take one person, one shovel. It's not going to be done in 10 minutes, 10 hours, or even 10 days. It's a hard work. Just like choosing to trust in God is hard work. Furthermore, a marriage, again, I don't know about it, but I'm learning about it, right? A marriage is hard work. Every single day, you have to choose to put in the work. You have to choose to be close to that person. You have to choose to trust that person. Trust doesn't just happen. It's something that's built. It's something that's worked on. And so in order to trust God, which I know is hard, right? For me, I mentioned earlier, I struggle with being vulnerable. I don't like to be seen as weak, and so when I'm struggling, I don't like talking about it. And that includes in my thoughts and prayers with God, right? I can pray for other people. I can pray for people who are struggling, but when it came to my own personal relationship with God, it was easy for me to ignore that and keep him here, keep him at work, right? Keep him at volunteer basis, keep him at just fun things to do and decorations. That was more comfortable for me. But every single day, I work on that trust. I'm going to tell you guys a story about a time where I really lacked in trusting with God. So we're going to talk about the unspeakable year 2020. At the time, I was in college, and so I was living in a dorm, and I was working at a food service place, and COVID hit. And so all of a sudden, I was at home doing things online. I did not have a great community at school, and so I knew that even when and if I was able to come back, I would not have community there. I lost my job because of the pandemic, and so all of a sudden, I was there without community, and without a job, and without school. And for a long time, I just was struggling. And also, I was really overwhelmed in 2020, with the political attention. And even during that time, right, where my parents worked, like half of the building burnt to a crisp, and we didn't know why. And so there was just like trust issues. And it took me a long time. I'm still working on it today, but I remember telling my fiancé boyfriend at the time, I used to be an optimist. I consider myself an optimist. I used to be an optimist, but now I'm not. When something bad happens, I assume the worst. When a restriction is lifted, I assume it's going to go back. When someone's nice to me, I assume they're lying. And I was like, since all of these things have happened, I no longer trust that God has a plan for me. And it was something that I really struggled with because people are like, oh, just trust in God. And I'm like, I'm struggling with that, right? Because my faith was wavering. But in reality, right, things that you can hold on to, friends, family, a lot of those things I lost. I had lost school, I had lost community, I had lost a job and finances. But what happens is that a job is temporary and can fall away. Family will not be there forever. Even your partner will not be there forever and cannot be there with you in every single circumstance, right? But the one thing that is unwavering is God. And so what a relationship to put time into and to put trust into and to let go of things in order to work on, because God is always there. And that's something that I didn't believe when I lacked in trust. Later on that year, I started a Bible study for young adults who had been stuck home because they were no longer in college, and none of us had community, and so we started that. It grew from 8 to 40 in about 8 months, and it was really, really fulfilling for me. But even in that, sometimes I would see it as work, right? I would see it as simply friendship and community. And so when I really, really started to work on my trust was this year. Trey preached on unbreakable habits in the beginning of the year, and I decided that my habit was going to be I was going to do a devotional every single day. I was going to read the Bible and do a prayer every day. And guys, that is hard work. And the way that I ensure that I do this every day is that I do not let myself go to sleep at night until I have read my Bible and I have prayed. And let me tell you how late I stay up now procrastinating that event, because it's exhausting, right? Like reading the Bible is getting deep. Talking to Jesus and talking to God, that's getting deep. And so sometimes I procrastinate it, and that lasts for a long night. But the difference that I have seen in my life is catastrophic, right? I have seen so many things happen since then, because every single day I get in the Word and learn a little bit more about the Bible. And every day I get to pray for the people that I hurt for. And every single day I get to pray over my family and over my friends. And every single day I get to thank God for the things that He's done in my life. And I've been able to have a conversation with Him and learn more about Him and understand His Word more every single day, little by little. And now I have trust in Him. Does that mean that I don't struggle? Absolutely not. I still have mental health struggles, right? I still have financial troubles and stresses and work, right? I still have a 9-to-5. I'm a normal person, but I have peace, more peace than I've ever had, because I know that God has a reason for my struggles, and God is holding me, and I can talk to Him every night about them. And I can read the Bible every single night about them. And there's more than you can do than just that, right? You can pray, you can find community, accountability, you can read your Bible more. But overall, there are many different ways where you can work on that trust. And it's worth working on, right? It's worth digging that well to get the flourishing well. It's worth working on that marriage. And so that was the second thing I wanted to leave with you guys, was trust. All right, now for my third point, we're going to go back to who? Oh my gosh, this is the best. Peter. So we're going to read a little bit about what happens after he walks out on the water. So Matthew 14:29-32. "Come," he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You have little faith," he said. "Why did you doubt?" And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. So what happened? Peter was walking on the water, an amazing, magical act, right? And what happened? The wind came. And let me tell you guys, the wind and the storm will always come. There's never going to be a time where you're trusting in Jesus and you're walking on that water and wind will not come and try to take you down. There will never be a time where you get to a point with Jesus where you're not going to have a struggle, or you're going to be fully at peace and you'll never struggle again. The wind will always come. But when the wind came, Peter doubted and he began to fall. Right? And that brings me to my third point, commitment. We need to commit, because I can choose today to let go of my apprehensions, my anxieties, my fears, and my doubts, and my angers and frustrations with the church. And today, I can choose that I trust God even if I'm struggling. But am I going to tomorrow? When things get even harder, am I going to next week? Am I going to go to Him in prayer in the Bible 3 months from now, right? Every single day, you need to choose to commit in order to dig deeper with Christ. Back to our well. You can't start the well, dig 10 feet down and walk away and assume that it's going to be flourishing forever. You have to keep digging deeper. You cannot stop halfway. You have to keep working at it. And yes, that's hard, but if you don't get water. So if you don't dig deeper with Christ, you don't get that deep, fulfilling relationship. With a marriage, if you walk away when things get hard, if you don't commit, if you stop working, are you going to be fulfilled in that marriage? Are you going to live a happy, healthy marriage? No. Because commitment is the hard work, but it's the work that makes it keep happening longer, which is wonderful. I understand that commitment is hard as a Gen Z person myself. I understand that we live in a microwave generation, right? You don't have to cook your food in the oven anymore. You can just pop in the microwave. It's a lot quicker. We live in a 7-second TikTok reel world. That's how our attention span, the highest on social media, is 7 seconds, right? You used to be able to go to a store and buy groceries, go to a cashier and check out, right? And then leave. Then you're able to go to a store and self-check out, efficient, right? Then you're able to drive up, pop the trunk, and have people load your groceries into your car. Then you could get grocery delivery. You don't even have to leave the house. And last week I read an article that Walmart is going to start doing drones, where they put your groceries in a drone and it drops it in your backyard. We live in an instant gratification society. I struggle with that all the time, right? I feel so spoiled. I used to live in Southwest Virginia in the mountains, and I often tell my fiance, how was it before grocery delivery and Uber Eats, which is like ridiculous, right? But we live in an instant gratification society. We don't have to commit. We don't have to go all the way to the store. We can do things in our own time the way we want them, right? I moved to Hanover when I was 15, and that's when I learned the phrase church hopping. I've heard of church shopping, where you're like searching and then you want to find one to commit to forever. But in Hanover, there's church hopping. And I'm sure other places as well, not just Hanover. But you'll go to a church for like 3 months, and then you'll get sick of it, and you're kind of annoyed with it, and you find something flashier. So then you go to another place for like 6 months, and you like it, but then you kind of get annoyed, and then you go maybe back to the first place, and then you go to a third place, and then back to the second place. Just kind of going wherever you feel is good for you, right? It's hard to commit. That's just one example of many where it's difficult to commit. Similar to a diet change. Anybody ever been on a diet? They're the worst. But if I eat a piece of cake every single day, right? If I eat one every single night, 2 pieces of cake a day, not going to be great for me. I decide I want to fix it. So I decide, a little less sugar, a little bit more protein every single day. I do that for 2 weeks. I start to feel a little better, feel like less junk. If I went right back to eating the cake every single day, is my good feeling going to stay? No. Because we have to commit. It's a lifestyle change, y'all, and that's the hardest part about dieting. You know what I'm saying? But it is a lifestyle change. We have to wake up every day and let go of those apprehensions. Because every day they're going to come back. And every day we're going to get a new storm, and we're going to have a new wind that's going to knock us down, and we're going to start sinking. And we have to choose to still let go of those doubts and apprehensions. We have to choose to trust God in those hard situations. So I started with prompting you guys with a question. What do I need to do to get deeper with God? In order to get deeper and closer to God, you have to let things go. Let it go. Elsa, anyone? Trust him and be willing to commit. Because yes, it's going to be hard, and there's going to be days where things are hard. And just like I said, my life isn't perfect, but I have that new peace and that new trust. And there's going to be days where you forget, just like a diet, right? But it's worth every single day to try to work harder on it, even though it is not going to be easy. So as Trey said earlier, this is Student Takeover Sunday. And Sadie Ericolano was actually supposed to be here and do the announcement. She's a junior at Mechanicsville High School. And I'm really sad she can't be here. She's under the weather today. But you're about to hear a part of her story. We also have Naomi on camera. She's one of my wonderful middle schoolers. And we have Caitlin, who is singing this morning and will sing later. And these students I've learned coming here, when I got this job, I was like, this is such a nice church. These kids are going to have no struggles. What? They're going to be perfect, and I'm sure it'll be great. But these kids have seen things and have struggled. You're going to hear more about how Sadie has struggled, but let me tell you that is the most committed person I've ever met. When I started this job, they're like, you need to meet Sadie. You need to meet Sadie. I was like, who is this person, this ghost, right? And I met Sadie, and they were so right. Sadie comes to everything I do, whether her friends are there or not, whether her age group is there or not, whether it's something that she even needs to be at or not, she'll show up. And she'll help me set up, and she'll help me clean up, and she'll ask me to go to coffee, and she'll make sure that the girls aren't doing TikToks in the bathroom, and she'll lead the devotionals when I need her to. Sadie is committed because she loves God. And I remember thinking, wow, she must have a great life, great parents that bring her up. But Sadie has been through a lot. And later we're going to look at her story and a video and see how she's decided to commit herself anyway. Also, Caitlin will sing again, but Caitlin has not had the easiest road. But Caitlin is the nicest, most amazing, successful student I might have ever encountered with, right? Like senior class president, in the choir, successful. And I thought that, of course, Caitlin has the most perfect and easiest life. But Caitlin has been through it, and she is so committed. She has taken herself to church since she was in 6th grade, right? And so these students, when I heard I'm going to be speaking and I was thinking about digging deeper, I was like, these people need to hear these students' stories because they are committed. they let go and they commit and they trust. And I want them to hear those stories. So we're going to hear Sadie's story. And then afterwards, Caitlin is going to come out and sing a song. And I ask you guys to focus and listen to that song, every single word of it. Because that song has changed my life. And I know that it means something to Caitlin and something to a lot of us. And then afterwards, I'll come out and I'll debrief.
My name is Sadie Orcolano. I'm in 11th grade, and I've been coming to Atlee student since I was in 6th grade. So October through December of 2021, I sound so silly, but I was like going through a breakup, and then 2 weeks later, I lost my friend to suicide. And then a month later, my friend was diagnosed with cancer. So it was like within that kind of 2-month period, it was just like, wow, this is rough. Like, hey God, are you there? Like, it was really, really bad. My faith definitely took a huge, huge hit. And it was terrible. It was to the point where I was like, this is it. God doesn't love me anymore. Like, I'm just gonna have to deal with this. I just went with the routine of church, still volunteer, because I was like, I'll just go for the kids, do the dance, and leave. And it wasn't until you showed up, Bethany, changed my life for real. It was, I don't know, it just, oof, I'm gonna cry. You literally just forever changed my life. I cannot thank you enough, because I was in a really, really dark spot where I was like, that's it, I guess God hates me. It just went through my mind, every day I was like, God hates me. He wouldn't make me go through this if he didn't, I definitely did something wrong. And then you came, and I remember I met you, and it was the parent meeting, and I remember crying on the way home in my car, and I was like, God, thank you, I needed this, you knew I needed this, it's gonna be okay, I'm gonna be okay, she's gonna show me that you still love me. And so I was just biggest blessing. Previously in my life, it was something bad would happen, and my faith was that kind of shaky faith where I would lose my trust in him, and it would be all right, God's not there anymore. And it was probably January-ish, where I was God's been there for me through it all. He's seen me through it all. He hasn't left necessarily. Just because I have wavered in my faith doesn't mean he's wavered in being there for me and loving me. He's still done that. And I think that's what I learned most of all, coming through that hard time. Church, I've always loved going to church ever since I was 5 years old. I wasn't really excited to go. Specifically, Atlee Students has been that place where no matter what my week was, no matter what I was going through, I could come, and I knew I wouldn't be judged, and I knew I was gonna have somewhere where I could talk about the hard stuff and ask the hard questions, and they were gonna get answered, and I was still gonna be loved after the hard questions. I'm committing myself to God by living like Jesus did and loving like Jesus did. Bethany spoke at the spring retreat about living your life so that Jesus can shine through you, and whether that's holding a door open for someone or complimenting someone, I've just been committing myself to trying to do that more and more and more every single day, and loving on people that maybe I don't love on enough, or being kinder to people that I'm not kind enough to. I heart Atlee Church with my whole heart.
I pray that we can use everything that you've given us to show the world who you are. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Well, thanks so much again for stopping by. If you have any questions or would like to get connected here at Atlee Church, we would love to help or serve you any way that we can. And if God is doing something awesome in your life, we'd love to hear about it. You can email us directly at stories@atleechurch.org. And if you would like to support the ministries here at Atlee financially, you can go to our website and click the top tab, Give, and that helps us continue to get these messages out there and make a difference in the lives of so many. Well, thanks for tuning in, and we hope to see you again next week.